Hi everyone, hope you're well. Chris Cowlin here. Now before we get into it, I'd just like to inform you about a new website selling quality current and retro Spurs jerseys, okjersey.com. They sell all current and retro Tottenham Hotspur shirts in all sizes. They sell the current fan and player versions as well as the 80s and 90s retro shirts, including my very favourite, the 1991 FA Cup final shirt. You can order very easily from okjersey.com, and if you use the code Chris, you will receive an 8% discount off your final order. You can also use the QR code on the top left of your screen. And by the way, they also have some training wear here and the 25-26 colour special edition jersey. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris Cowlin, and today I'll be joined by Gareth McGuinness as we are predicting the scores for Matchweek 24. This is another episode of Premier League predictions. Now, Arsenal at the moment are 4 points clear at the top. Manchester City and Aston Villa are second and third, just 4 points behind Arsenal right now. Manchester United are in the top four after a couple of great wins for them under Michael Carrick, and West Ham, Burnley and Wolves all remain in the bottom three. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook or X, please do get involved. Just a little bit of fun. Put your score predictions in the comment section below. It's great when you guys play along. 5 games will take place on Saturday. 3 p.m. kickoffs: Brighton against Everton, Leeds against Arsenal, and Wolves take on Bournemouth. And then also on Saturday, the 5:30 kickoff: Chelsea take on West Ham, and the 8 p.m. kickoff: Liverpool take on Newcastle. 4 games will take place on Sunday. 2 p.m. kickoff, Aston Villa against Brentford, also a 2 p.m. kickoff. Manchester United host Fulham, and another 2 p.m. kickoff. Forest will take on Crystal Palace. And then also on Sunday, the big game for Spurs as they take on Manchester City at 4:30. And the Monday night football game is 8 p.m. kickoff. Sunderland take on Burnley. Gareth, good afternoon to you. Hope you're well. Some huge games coming up this weekend.
Some huge games, like you mentioned there, Chris. Probably the highlight is Tottenham against Man City. You feel that is the game that everyone's going to be watching. Obviously, there's a lot of jeopardy in the game for Spurs at the moment. You know, teams below them have started to pick up points, like West Ham, like Nottingham Forest. So Spurs could be in a very precarious position if February turns out to be another bad month in the Premier League for them. Man City, of course, have got a shot in the arm after Man United's won at Arsenal last week, and they closed the gap from 74. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. It'll be quite interesting to see the atmosphere at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday, because, yes, we're in a dire situation in the Premier League, but there is a lot of Tottenham fans that do not want Arsenal. They want the Premier League. You know, if Arsenal go and beat Leeds and Spurs beat Man City, you know, that 7-point gap with 14 games to go looks a big gap for Arsenal. So there's a lot riding on these games this weekend. I don't think Arsenal will have it all their own way at Ellen Road on Saturday. I think that'll be a difficult game. Leeds are in great form. So a lot to look out for. And of course, the Saturday night football game at 8 o'clock, Liverpool against Newcastle, very nostalgic fixture. There's a lot of goals in those games. And the way both teams are playing, you feel that their defences at the moment are their weakest part of the team. So I feel there could be a lot of goals in that game on Saturday night.
Gareth, what did you make of last week in the Premier League? And like you've mentioned there, you know, some of these fixtures this weekend, you know, the teams going for the Premier League title. You've got the teams gunning for a European spot. You've got a lot of teams in the middle there. It's extremely tight. And of course, we have got the bottom three, the likes of West Ham picking up a couple of great wins. I know we talk individually about the clubs, but there is a lot to play for, particularly now, you know, until May. A lot to play for all of these clubs.
Definitely. I think there will be a handful of clubs that are targeting your European place. The results in the Champions League and Europa League midweek have increased the coefficient ranking for England. It looks nailed on now. Almost, it's not certain, but Opta are giving it 100% chance of England picking up 5 Champions League spots after those results, and that means there's an effect in terms of 2 Europa League spots, and of course 8th position would be a Europa League conference spot. So there'll be a lot of teams with their eye on those 7th and 8th spots because of the lack of inconsistency. I mean, I think it was only a few weeks ago, Fulham were in the bottom half, and all, of course, they're 7th now, which is going to be enough for Europe. So
Yeah.
a few ones could make it a very different table for clubs, but it's very hard to pick teams they won every week at the moment because there is just a real lack of inconsistency. But the one thing we have to say, Chris, and the Champions League proved it, is that we still seem to have the strongest league around. 5 of the top 8 teams were from England, and Newcastle picked up a playoff spot as a seeded team. You would expect them to be quarterback over 2 games, so you would imagine that the last 16 in the Champions League, you're going to have 6 English clubs, and pretty much nailed on. There'll be an all English quarter final if they get through. So, we've been critical of times of the football, but it seems to be that these other nations are even further behind.
Gareth, this season so far has been dubbed by a lot of people, including a lot of pundits and journalists and a lot of fans as well, saying that the Premier League has been really poor in quality this season. You've just mentioned there, a lot of teams can beat a lot of the top teams as well. We've seen a mixture of very, very weird results. We were on here every week predicting these scores, and some of them we get right, and some of them we get terribly wrong. And a lot of other people do, I might add. Is it a poor league this season, or is it a great league, the fact that anyone can beat anyone?
Depends who you support. I mean,
I suppose
fans probably don't think it's a great league at the moment. Arsenal fans probably think it's great. So I do like the fact that you watch most games and you think anybody could win this game. But is that down to the quality, or is it down to the fact that there's a lot of teams that are underperforming, like Spurs, like Manchester United up to a certain point recently? They've improved. Chelsea have been on and off. Liverpool have fell off a cliff. Man City, for me, still aren't back to the levels they were a few years ago. Aston Villa, have been excellent after the first few games. So it makes for interesting viewing, but from a Spurs point of view, and I know it is a Premier League prediction show, but I haven't particularly enjoyed it as a Tottenham fan. As a Premier League fan, for taking Spurs out of it, I think it's great. But as a Tottenham fan, I would like to see us win a few more games. And I don't think it's down to our teams being great. I think it's down to us being very poor.
You can tell we're 8 minutes in, and Gareth has mentioned Spurs about 3 or 4 times already. Can't wait to talk about the Spurs v Manchester City game. Gareth, we'll get there, I promise. Right, we're going to start with the Saturday fixtures. Brighton take on Everton, 3 p.m. Brighton are currently 12th. Everton are 10th. Now, as you mentioned there, Gareth, it's an extremely tight league, particularly in the middle area. Mid-table, and these teams are gunning for a European spot. Now, previous meetings, Brighton have won 6, Everton have won 12, and 7 games have finished as a draw. Last time these two met was at the Hill Dickinson Stadium, with Everton winning 2-0. Brighton are winless in their last 5 home league games against Everton, drawing 2 and losing 3 since a 3-2 victory in October 2019. And following their 2-0 win in August's reverse fixture, Everton are looking to complete the league double over Brighton for just the second time after the 1980-81 campaign. What have you made of these two sides this season, and who's going to win?
Both very inconsistent teams, very much on their day. They can beat anyone. I think Everton in the last 6 weeks have been the Man United in one. They've been the Aston Villa in one, but they've also been battered at home by Brentford. And they were beat last week as well, Everton. No, sorry, they drew 1 each last week with Leeds. So they're a very difficult team to predict. Brighton, likewise, great one against Man United in the FA Cup, but don't follow it up. Very difficult. I think Jack Grealish's injury is a big blow to Everton. Looks like he's out for the rest of the season. I think that'll be a huge blow to Everton's chances of maybe getting into Europe. And I feel that Brighton at home today, I know you've said about the stats there, Brighton are winless in their last 5 games against Everton at home. But I feel today might be the day they break that.
I agree. I'm going to go 1-0 Brighton. What are you going to go for?
I'm going to go 2-1 Brighton.
Okay, right. Next up, another 3 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. Leeds United take on Arsenal. Now, Leeds are sitting in 16th place at the moment. Arsenal, of course, are league leaders in first. Goals scored this season. Leeds have scored 31 Premier League goals. Arsenal have scored 42. Now, of course, last time out for Arsenal in the Premier League, they lost their first home league defeat this season to Manchester United 3-2. Was that a surprise result for you?
If you go back to last week's predictions, I actually tipped Man United to get a result. I thought it would be a draw. But no, I thought United would give them a lot of problems. I felt that if they defend their corners and set pieces well, they would get a result. And Arsenal scored from an own goal on a set piece. They're kind of becoming that kind of team that the open play goals are very, very few and far between in the Premier League for them. I know they beat Carriat Almaty in the Champions League with a much changed team, but this is the test for Arsenal. I don't think they've won in the league for 3 games, so title winning teams, doesn't go 4 or 5 games really, does it? Way to won. So I think they've been very, very fortunate that Man City have been struggling for players. They've had a lot of injuries in this New Year period. Gahey now is can come on. So Man City just need to hang on there, and it'd be worrying for Arsenal that they haven't pulled it away. If Arsenal had got themselves together in that New Year period, we'd be sitting with a 10 or 11 point lead, and it would be good night Vienna. But because we kept referencing to Chris earlier in the season, that when you haven't got that experience of winning a Premier League and you haven't got that experience of winning trophies, Arsenal look very nervous, and we're a long way from the finish line. Last week there was 16 games left. There's still 15 games left. Long way to go. And they look very nervous, especially when they go 1-0 up in games. And at the end of the day, United deserved to win last week. They were the better team on the ball. They were the better team from open play. Arsenal scored 2 scrappy goals. So this will be a test today because Leeds are in great form. And if Leeds can get the first goal, then Arsenal are going to be up against it. So who knows what could happen over the weekend, but I do think this has got danger written all over it for Arsenal.
Gareth, can I remind you that what I've been saying over the last 24 weeks on who I think is going to win the Premier League?
Yeah, Man City.
I'm still standing by it. And you're absolutely right. Last time out, before that Manchester United game, Arsenal went to the City ground and drew 0-0 against Nottingham Forest. So only 1 point out of a possible 6 in their last 2, certainly. Leeds, last time out, they beat Fulham 1-0 and then drew 1-1 away at Everton. Previous meetings played 112, Leeds winning 38, Arsenal winning 48, 26 draws. Now, can you remember the score earlier on in the season when Arsenal faced Leeds at the Emirates?
5-0 to Arsenal.
Yeah. I think it's going to be very different this time round.
Definitely.
Before we get your score prediction, Leeds are winless in their last 6 home games against Arsenal, drawing 2 and losing 4 since a 1-0 victory back in November 2000. It's over 25 years. 3 of those 4 defeats have been by a 4-1 scoreline. Do you know what, Gareth? I'd love Arsenal to drop points again today. I'm actually going to go for a 1-1 draw. I was going to say 2-2. I think 1-1. 1-1 draw.
I agree. Leeds United 1, set piece and own goal City 1.
Is it more us being hopeful of that, or is that realistic?
I always think it's very important when you're doing these shows to be completely honest, because you would lack what's the word? You would lack relevance if you were just tapping Arsenal to get beat every week. I think for about 10 shows in a row, I predicted Arsenal victories. Based on recent form and the lack of, you says about the Forest 0-0. Before that, it was Liverpool 0-0. So they aren't scoring that many goals, and when they do tend to go on, they tend to be, I think, own goals is their second top goal scorer in the Premier League. And then they've obviously got, I think, 70% of their goals in the Premier League from set plays. So I think if Leeds are very, very good from set pieces as well. I made out they've got a big team. I think Leeds, if they defend well, they'll get something. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw as well.
Okay. Right, another 3 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. Wolves against Bournemouth. Wolves are sat bottom of the Premier League table in 20th, only scored 15 Premier League goals this campaign. Bournemouth are currently 13th. They have 30 points. They've scored 38 goals this season. Last time out, Bournemouth beat Liverpool 3-2. And Bournemouth are on a good run at the moment. They're unbeaten in their last 4 in all competitions, including 2 wins and 1 draw in the Premier League. Wolves, of course, last time out, lost 2-0 away at Manchester City. But before that, they were picking up some good points, and they also got a good win in the FA Cup, beating Shrewsbury Town 6-1. Previous meetings, played 15, Wolves won 5. Bournemouth won 7, 3 draws. The last time that these sides met was back in August 2025. Bournemouth winning this one 1-0, and Wolves have lost each of their last 3 Premier League home games against Bournemouth, having won their first 2 against them in the competition. I know I ask you this every week. Wolves, can they do something magical and stay in the Premier League for next year, or is that them done? And what are your expectations for Bournemouth this season?
Wolves had a little bit of hope, didn't they? But I think those ones for West Ham and Forest have made it very difficult now. I think it was still a long shot, but I think it's becoming very, very difficult now. But I think it's important for Wolves to give it everything, because there's no point lying down. You may as well go down with a fight. This is a game today they could take points from. Bournemouth are but inconsistent. They've been hard to beat recently, Bournemouth. Not because they're a dogged team, because they score so many goals. You always feel you probably need at least 3 goals to beat Bournemouth. That's why I think Areola says there's been so many draws, is they're scoring plenty, but they're conceding too many. What a game that was against Liverpool. They fully deserved their victory against Liverpool. I keep saying it every week, Chris, they're my favourite team in the league to watch. They're the most entertaining. Even the fact they were 2-0 up against Liverpool come back to 2-2, and you feel, oh, do you know what? We've been 2-0 up. Let's sit back and try and make sure we don't get beat. No, he says, let's go for it. They put on a striker and they go and get the one at the end. And I think that's the bravery that, sometimes that they've been on the wrong end of some of them results, but they deserved that one against Liverpool. They deserved that one against Spurs with a late goal as well. So I think you have to give the manager a lot of credit. And if you're a Bournemouth fan every week, you're getting plenty of value for money because there's a lot of goals in the games. And I can only take my hat off to him because he's lost a lot of big players. They've now lost Semenyo as well. He still scored 3 goals against Liverpool. So I think Wolves have a chance, but if Bournemouth are at their best, I think they won this game.
That's not said a lot, though, Gareth, is it? Particularly in the media, I find. Someone like Andoni Iraola, he always gets his teams playing entertaining football and always seems to get results. And you've hit the nail on the head there. The amount of players that go from teams like Bournemouth in multiple transfer windows, and the manager still gets them to play a certain way. And, some people would say that it would take time to, for players to adapt. They seem to adapt really quickly the way that he wants to play, the style of play. Would you expect Andoni Iraola to be at Bournemouth next season?
I don't think so. I think there'll be a lot of clubs looking at that style of play that he has it with Bournemouth and think, imagine that system with better players. You've mentioned it there, Chris. They've lost 3 of their back 4 to Liverpool, PSG and Real Madrid, and they've now lost their star attacker to Man City. We're not talking about middle of the road teams. These are the top clubs that you expect to be competing for the major honours. So what a job he's done to even attract that level of interest to the players he's coaching, because most of these players that we speak about nobody knew who they were before they went to Bournemouth and played for Areola. So I think it's well known amongst the Spurs fan base that Pochettino was the one that they want. But I think if he ended up with Areola, I don't think that's a bad consolation. I think he would be the type of manager that would bring that attacking football back to Spurs and have a little bit more structure to it than maybe someone like Ange Postecoglou did. So personally, if he was the Tottenham manager in August 2026, I wouldn't be complaining. I think it would be a great fit.
Do you know, I've said this many times, Gareth, Andoni Iraola reminds me so much of Mauricio Pochettino when he was at Southampton. And he's obviously going to get that. Well, I say obviously. I think he will get that big move to a a top club. No disrespect to Bournemouth, but I think that he will manage at a top level because of what he's produced there. I think he's going to go very, very far.
Yes, you even look at someone like Dominic Solanke, whose career was kind of stalled, and then under Areola, he goes and scores 19 Premier League goals, and he ends up at Tottenham. So he's another player they've lost recently, and he was part of that team. So I think you've got to be looking at someone like him. If Pochettino, if it doesn't work out there in the negotiations, because I do think that will be the top choice, I think Areola's got to be second.
Yeah, I wouldn't be at all surprised, and I'd be very pleased with that as well because he's a top manager who gets them playing extremely entertaining football, and what are Spurs fans crying out for all the time? Top entertaining football and
Chris,
results.
If you're playing games as well, we obviously managers need time. If Areola comes in and Spurs play Arsenal and get beat 3-2 from set pieces, but they play brilliant football, I think obviously the fans will be disappointed, but they'll imagine now in a few months' time with better players, what could it be? Whereas the moment under Thomas Franks, there's a real lack of that attacking football. So I think when you play that kind of style of play, it does buy you more time with the fans.
Right, score prediction for this one, Gareth. Wolves v Bournemouth. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Bournemouth win. What are you going to go for?
I think Bournemouth will win, but I think there'll be goals in it because Bournemouth tend to concede as well. So I'm going to go for 3-2 Bournemouth.
Okay, entertaining one. Another entertaining one. Right, the 5:30 kickoff on Saturday. Chelsea host West Ham at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea are currently 5th. West Ham are down in 18th. But what a couple of results West Ham have picked up, beating QPR in the FA Cup at home and then going away to Tottenham, beating them 2-1. And then last time out, beating Sunderland 3-1. West Ham look dead and buried, but 2 wins out of 2 in the Premier League these last couple of weeks has given them hope and belief now. Of course, Chelsea are on a good run as well in all competitions, 4 wins out of their last 4. Previous meetings, 111. Chelsea won 49, West Ham 40, 22 draws. And the last time that these two sides met was at the London Stadium back in August. Chelsea coming out 5-1 winners. Chelsea have won their last 4 Premier League games against West Ham by an aggregate score of 15-2. We know there's always goals in this game. It's their longest winning run against the Hammers since a run of 6 between 2006 and 2008. What are the hopes for Chelsea this season? Of course, they've had the managerial change. West Ham, we've spoken about. I know a couple of weeks ago I said I think that West Ham will still stay up. You laughed and said no way. What are you thinking now?
If they stay up, Spurs are going down, put it that way. So let's hope not. Because I don't think Nottingham Forest are going to get relegated. So Palace, possibly the other one, could be dragged into it. But I think if West Ham won today, we are going to be really nervous because that 8 points gets cut to 5. And all of a sudden, you look at our February fixtures and think we're bang on trouble. So it's an unusual way of looking at it. When Chelsea play West Ham, I kind of feel that you want West Ham to take points off them. But today, I'm kind of hoping Chelsea beat them. And that's usually the situation that we're in. It's February now, this weekend. And, if you're sitting only 5 points above relegation, you are in the scrap. So for Chelsea, I mean, they've got to be eyeing up a top 5 finish. I think it's well known now, barring a miracle, that top 5 is going to get you Champions League football. They're more than capable of it. Cole Palmer's back as well. Great one in Naples in the Champions League to secure a top 8 finish. So Rossinior's quietly going about a good start at Chelsea. And I would expect them to take full advantage of West Ham. Yes, West Ham have had a bit of a money run. But if we're honest, they were very fortunate to beat Spurs. Great one against Sunderland. But I would expect Chelsea to win this game and won this game comfortably today.
What do you think of the managerial change of Rossinior? And I've seen a number of clips online of likening him to David Brent from The Office. What do you make of him as a manager?
I think that's disrespectful because he's done a brilliant job at any club he's been at in terms of Hull, Derby, Hull and Strasbourg. It's a big jump, no doubt about it. Chelsea wants somebody with more pedigree. But if they're going to give him time and let him make his own decisions, then I think he could do really well there. but they will always be fighting that an argument of Chelsea want a top manager at their club. They've had Jose Mourinho, they've had Carlo Ancelotti, they've had Antonio Conte. That's the level they expect. So when it's been Graham Potter, they never give Graham Potter a chance. Yes, it didn't work out, but the fans never wanted him in the first place. Maresca had a very troubled relationship with the fans. Again, came from the Championship with Leicester, and of course now Rossinier. The Chelsea fans don't really respect that level of manager. So he's going to have to win a lot of football matches. They won them over, but I think he's had a really good start, and I do expect him to continue that today with a win against West Ham.
Gareth, as I mentioned, there's a lot of goals in this fixture, normally between Chelsea and West Ham. Chelsea have scored 109 goals in 59 Premier League games against West Ham, their second highest tally against an opponent after Tottenham, and that's 122 in 67 games. I can't see West Ham going to Stamford Bridge and getting a win, although they've had two really good wins lately against Spurs and Sunderland. I think Chelsea will continue their unbeaten run. And I think that they're going to win this game comfortably. I'm going to go say 2-0. What do you think?
I'm going to go 3-1 because Chelsea always have a mistake on them at the back.
Okay. Right. The last fixture for Saturday, the 8 p.m. kickoff at Anfield. Liverpool take on Newcastle. Liverpool are currently in 6th. Newcastle are down in 9th. Only 3 points separate these two sides, with Liverpool having 36, Newcastle 33. Goals scored this season, Liverpool 35, Newcastle 32. A big win against Qarabağ in the Champions League midweek for Liverpool, and Newcastle with their 1-1 away draw against PSG. Last time out in the Premier League, both teams lost. Newcastle losing 2-0 at home against Aston Villa, and Liverpool losing 3-2 away at Bournemouth. Previous meetings, played 166, Liverpool winning 82, Newcastle only 43, and 41 draws. And the last time that these two sides met was in August 2025 at St James's Park, with Liverpool coming out 3-2 winners. Liverpool are unbeaten in their last 18 Premier League games against Newcastle. What a record that is. Winning 13 and drawing 5 since a 2-0 away loss back in December 2015. Gareth, who's going to win this one?
I think there's going to be goals all over it. I think it'll be really entertaining. If you get the St James's Park Newcastle at Anfield on Saturday night, they've got every chance of winning the game. But the problem being, away from home, they haven't been good enough. A great result in Paris in midweek, maybe that'll give them some confidence. But I think this is the first. I think they play 8 games now in 25 days because they've not qualified directly for the last 16. They've got those 2 games against Qarabağ, and I mean, yes, it's a favourable fixture on paper, but travel-wise, Azerbaijan's not going to be easy. They're also got the second leg of the Carabao Cup against Man City, which is going to be a big ask. They're still in the FA Cup. They've got Aston Villa away, so they're in all these competitions, and they've got some tough draws. They navigate through them and the Premier League. So Eddie Howe's going to find it very difficult to utilise what is a smallish enough squad for a team that's in the Champions League. And he's found that problem in the past, a couple of seasons ago, when the league form tailed off because of the Champions League. So normally you'd say it's very tough going to Anfield, but yes, they won 6-0 against Qarabağ midweek, but Liverpool are not at the races. Defensively have been suspect all season. Mo Salah hasn't been at his best. They've got injuries, Isak, and a massive issue at right back. There's talk they're going to have to put Szoboszlai back at right back, and in my opinion, he's their best midfielder by a million miles. So that's going to put more pressure on Florian Wirtz. So look, it really is a toying cost tonight, but I do think based on Newcastle's away record and Liverpool's, they don't lose many at home. There's been a few draws on there recently, give or take. I think it'll make it more likely that Liverpool won the game. But, if Newcastle can turn up and play at their best, I think Newcastle could win, because I think Newcastle have produced higher levels this year when they've been at their best. Whereas Liverpool you haven't really seen too many 10 out of 10 performances all season from Liverpool. And they do concede a lot of goals. So I do think it could be another really, really entertaining one.
Gareth, what have you made of the continued criticism of Arne Slot? Because of course Liverpool are current champions of the Premier League, and where do they need to go, or what do they need to do in the summer? Do they back the manager again? Because when you looked at the start of this season, the transfer window that they had, the summer window, I think a lot of us, I think including both you and I, said give them the league title now, because it looked like they were going to be running away with it, particularly how they played last season. And then when they had that transfer window, how do they turn it around, particularly in the summer? And if also let me add in, where do you think they'll finish at the end of this season?
It's interesting, Chris. You think about Arne Slot last year with the media. He couldn't say a bad word, really. He was, because Liverpool were doing so well, but Liverpool fans have not just criticised what's happening on the pitch, but knows what's actually happening off the pitch. I know you watch all the Thomas Frank press conferences, but Arne Slot made a reference in midweek in his press conference that we should be very grateful that we've got through the last 16 in the Champions League, because only 2 years ago we were playing in the Europa League. Very similar to what Thomas Frank said about this team finished 17th last season. So there's been a complete character change in Arne Slot from this season from last. And I think when a manager's under pressure, you see the cracks and their personality, and how, what happened 2 years ago has got no relevance. There was a different manager, different players. Yes, there are some players still there.
Is it sometimes the manager saying to the fans, look, have a little bit of realism?
Well, I mean, Liverpool won the league last year. Why did he not say, well, last year we won the league? He referenced 2 years ago when he wasn't even there, and they were in the Europa League. So I think it was, he says about PSG, they won the Champions League last year, and now they're struggling a wee bit. I think you've got to focus on what's happening in front of you. And I think a lot of managers try to deflect, and the fans see right through it. So I think as much as Liverpool fans are displeased about the lack of winnings in the last sort of 2 months, there's been a lot of draws. They're not happy with the style of play. They think they've been a bit more negative recently. I think now they're starting to focus on the press conferences, and that was starting to annoy him. And it's very similar to what's happening at Spurs in terms of, it's not just what's happening on the pitch with Thomas Frank. A lot of fans are critical of what he's saying in the media. And it does start to feel it's the beginning of the end, Chris. I mean, it already feels like he's lost a lot of the fans. I mean, my percentage of like friends are mostly Liverpool, and every one of them says they want the manager out, not at the end of the season, they want them out now. And that is a complete transformation from a team that won the Premier League last season. So I think if he's going to keep his job and get one more season, he's got to finish in the top 5 to get Champions League football. I think at the moment, Arsenal, Man City, Aston Villa, Man United and Chelsea are the 5 that are the favourites. So I think Liverpool are slight outsiders. I think they're going to finish 6th, and I feel that won't be enough for Arne Slot to keep his job.
Score prediction for this one? I think it's got a 1-1 draw written all over it.
2-2.
Okay, you've gone for a draw as well. Okay, let's move on to the Sunday fixtures. 2 p.m. kickoff at Villa Park. Aston Villa take on Brentford. Now, Aston Villa are currently 3rd, 4 points behind league leaders Arsenal. Same points as second place Manchester City. Brentford are in 8th right now under Keith Andrews, his first season at the G-Tech Community Stadium. Brentford have lost their last couple of games against Chelsea and against Nottingham Forest. Aston Villa have won their last couple of games, including their last Premier League game against Newcastle, winning 2-0 at St James's Park. Now, previous meetings between these two sides, Aston Villa winning 9, Brentford winning 6, and 9 finishing as a draw. And the last time that these two sides met was in the League Cup this season. That was a 1-1 draw. And in the Premier League back in August, Brentford won the game 1-0. Now, Aston Villa have never lost in 10 previous home league games against Brentford. Never lost. Winning 4 and drawing 6. The most that they have faced a single side without defeat. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Emery. And I know we've spoken a little bit about him, so far this campaign and the job that he has done at Villa Park. I just found it really weird and baffling that he was in an interview a week or two ago, and one of the presenters, Yeah, one of the presenters said to him about a title race, and he said they're not even in contention to be a top 5 team. Did you find that weird, Gareth? Why did he say that? Because 4 points away from league leaders Arsenal. I tell you what, Aston Villa look a real force this season. How far can Aston Villa push the likes of City and Arsenal for this Premier League title?
It depends how serious they take the Europa League, and we know Unai Emery loves the Europa League. They finished top 2 in the Europa League, so they can't play Lyon, who finished top. Villa finished second. They can't play into the final. And you look at the rest of the teams on it. Villa have got to be the favourites. They go and do really well on that. And of course, Unai Emery's record in the Europa League is fantastic. So I think he'll really, if he had to put all your eggs in one basket at the moment, you would say that Aston Villa are outsiders. You would expect it to be Arsenal or Man City. I think that's fair to say. What would a trophy do for Aston Villa in terms of their development?
But Gareth, if you're at game week 24 and you're 4 points away, surely you would start believing, wouldn't you? Surely as players and the manager, you'd be thinking, we're 4 points away with 15 games to go. Of course
you should believe, and of course if you keep winning and you stay in the race, which is great, but I think it'll come a point where they'll have to pick one or the other. And I think I just don't think the squad's big enough. They compete. I can't see Aston Villa being in the final day of the Premier League title race and being in the Europa League final. I just don't see that happening. I think the squad's not big enough. So I just think that if Aston Villa finish third, as good as it is, if they don't win the Europa League, I think there'll be more of a disappointment in that. They'll have seen Spurs last year winning the Europa League, and Villa, let's be honest, are a better team than Spurs. So they'll believe that, and they're not going to meet a Man United in the final, someone of that pedigree. So I think they've got a wonderful chance in that. But yes, see if they get the last 7-8 games and they're still on it. Why not? I just think time will tell, and it'll catch up. And I think they'll be fine, top 5, but Europa League's got to be what they're targeting. In terms of Unai Emery's comments, there's no doubt that was a message to the board that he needs more investment. Problem is, the Villa hands are tied. They're on the PSR borderline of being in breach of the rules. So unless they sell, what are they going to do? And I think that's not going to go down well with Emery. We've seen it at Crystal Palace with Oliver Glasner. For me, Emery's got a Man United manager written all over it.
I was going to mention that, Gareth. That what do you make of so many managers now coming out and giving huge digs at the board? This seems to be happening more and more lately.
I think it's a way of, one, trying to get what you want, and two, I'm available. If this is going to be the way it is, I'm available. It's a message to the bigger clubs, isn't it? And look, I think a lot of United fans are very happy with Michael Carrick's start, but there is a real sense that they want a more experienced manager. I think Unai Emery ticks every box. European experience, Premier League experience, has turned water into wine. And I think naturally that should be the way United go. But from what we hear, United want one of the more glamour managers. And if Tuchel, Carlo Ancelotti, I don't think that's the right fit. I think Unai Emery or Eddie Howe has got to be where United look for.
Yeah, I think I've said this to you many times before. I think Emery is extremely underrated, and I think he's done an absolutely fantastic job there at Villa Park. I think Aston Villa are going to win this game as well. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Villa win. What are you going to go for?
2-1 Villa.
Right, so you want to go 2-1 Villa, and you're going for a draw with Leeds and Arsenal. So you think after match week 24, Aston Villa are going to be 2 points behind Arsenal?
Yes, 2 points behind, yeah.
That'll make it interesting.
And make it very interesting if Man City pull off something to it at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which has been a bit of a bogey ground.
We're coming to it. I promise. Right, another Sunday fixture, 1st of Feb. Manchester United take on Fulham. Manchester United are back in the top 4. Of course, they parted ways with Amorim, and Carrick has come in. 2 wins out of 2. 2 absolutely huge wins, I might say, beating Manchester City and then beating Arsenal away. Some fans, some pundits are already saying, give Michael Carrick the job for next season. I think it's a little bit early to say that yet, but some people are saying, look, what a job he's done so far. Certainly freshened things up there and got them winning in the Premier League, back in the top four. Fulham are 7th, as you mentioned earlier, Gareth. Manchester United have scored 41 goals in the Premier League so far this campaign. Fulham have scored 32. As I mentioned, Manchester United have won their last 2 in the Premier League. Fulham, they beat Brighton 2-1 at home at Craven Cottage last time out. Previous meetings, played 66, Manchester United winning 43, Fulham winning only 9 and 14 draws. Last time these two sides met was at Craven Cottage back in August, and it finished as a 1-1 draw. And Manchester United have lost just 1 of their last 20 Premier League games against Fulham. What a record that is. Winning 15 and drawing 4, going down 2-1 at Old Trafford back in Feb 2024. What do you make of stats like this? When I read these stats out to you, and I know we do these predictions, but Manchester United have not lost. They've only lost 1 of their last 20 Premier League games. If you're a player or a manager, do you look at stats like this going into games thinking that we want to put it right?
That stat doesn't surprise me, because naturally you would expect Man United to beat Fulham. They're a bigger club, so, but then you look at it, I think Fulham have beat Spurs 3 of their last 4, and we would say we're a bigger club than Fulham. So I don't know, it's just the way it is. United, of course, haven't been great over the last number of years, but for whatever reason, they tend to turn up against Fulham. In terms of Michael Carrick, Chris, what a start, a dream start. I mean, you looked at those opening games he had, you thought Man City and Arsenal, that he couldn't really pick too much of a more difficult start. But this is the test for Man United now, because everyone expected them as second favourites against Man City, second favourites against Arsenal. Now the pressure shifts on. Can you turn up at home when your fans are expecting you to win? And this is what United have done and failed to do in numerous previous managers. Amram won at Anfield back in October. And look, he didn't last until the new year. So I think this is a huge test for the players and the manager. And look, if Carrick keeps winning, it's going to be hard not to consider him long term. He's come in and he's kept it really simple. He's gone back to the back 4. He's put Bruno Fernandes higher up the pitch. For me, he's the best number 10 in the Premier League because of his numbers, his goals, his assists, his free kicks, his penalties. He's an all-round player. Is he a great captain? No. But in terms of his numbers, it's hard to argue he's not the best number 10 in the Premier League. And I think if you get the best of Bruno Fernandes and you have Cunha and Mbeumo and Ahmad playing in front, that's a really dangerous front 4. So I expect him to beat Fulham, but I don't think it'll be as one-sided as some suggest.
I'm going to go 2-0 Manchester United. What are you going to go for?
2-1 Man United.
Yeah, so that would be a dream start. Gareth, just a very quick yes or no. If Manchester United finish in a Champions League spot at the end of the season and these really good performances and results continue under Carrick, does he get the job?
I don't think so, because of what happened with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I think that'll be the reason that Carrick doesn't get it long term. If they hadn't had that experience before, he probably would have got it.
Is that fair?
It's not, but I think the fans are against an hour interim getting the job based on a few months. I think they want somebody with more experience.
It would then certainly put Michael Carrick in the shop window, wouldn't it?
Well, definitely. I mean, I did throw his name out there at Christmas time as a possible Spurs interim manager. But no, I think he would definitely get a Premier League job afterwards, no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Another Sunday fixture, 2 p.m. kickoff at the City Ground, Nottingham Forest against Crystal Palace. Now, Forest are currently 17th, Crystal Palace are 15th. Now, 3 points separate the two sides, Palace having 28, Forest having 25. It was a huge win for Forest last time out at Brentford, winning 2-0. And Crystal Palace have lost their last 3 in all competitions, 2 in the Premier League and 1 in the FA Cup. Some people I've seen stating that Crystal Palace should let go of Oliver Glasner now. Would you say that would be a good move, or is it a good move to keep him until the end of the season? Because I don't think any of us expected Palace, the way that they were playing, to be in 15th spot in Matchweek 24.
I was listening to Talk Sport, Chris, and some of their fans were ringing in saying, get him out now.
Yeah, I saw that.
Football can change very, very quickly. I think if they lose here and Forest go level with them, there's going to be a real sense of fear and the Palace boardroom that they could go down, because Matera now has cried wolf to get out. They've lost their captain and Mark Gahey. The manager has already said he's leaving at the end of the season. The morale in the camp is going to be low. So I think they may have to change it and bring in somebody that can get them going to the end of the season. So this would not surprise me if this was Oliver Glasner's last game, should they lose, because they are going to be dragged into it then. And they're on the worst run of all teams in the Premier League. And they don't look at the minute like they can buy a one. It's very, very sad how it's all went to Crystal Palace, but I think Oliver Glasner has let himself down massively. I think with these behaviours, ridiculous, to be honest. He knew what he was getting into when he went to Palace. He knew the levels of what Palace could do as a football club. Yes, he exceeded expectations as a coach, winning the FA Cup, getting them into Europe, but he's went way overboard with his criticism and the demands that he expects a club like Crystal Palace to be able to put out to him. Crystal Palace do not have the finances to become a top 4 team currently. So it was inevitable that they were going to lose players. And I think the way he's handled as a coach and the leader of the club is not good. And that would put a lot of top clubs off him as well. So I think not only has he hurt the club he's with, I think he's also done himself a disservice in terms of another club. Yes, he's going to get a job. Of course he is. Yeah. But, apparently he was United's top target. And now he's not even in the frame. So you can only think that's because of his comments in the media, because United went down that route with an Amram. He was very outspoken. Man United want a calmer head, and Oliver Glasner's just not displayed that kind of personality at Crystal Palace. So I think it would be in everyone's best interests a defeat here and Palace move on and go and get someone that can keep them in the league, because if you can't win a game, Chris, and you're being dragged further and further down the table, you're in a real rut and you're in a real problem. And Matera will be a huge loss. It looks like he's refusing to play now. Oliver Glasner says he's been left out. So they're going to have to sell him, and then can they get somebody in that can score the goals that he was scoring earlier in the season? Big ask.
Yeah, I couldn't have put it any better myself, what you just said about Glasner, because, we were raving about him at the start of this season, and I completely agree. To conduct yourself in that manner and in that fashion, I think you're absolutely spot on. It will put a lot of top clubs off, sadly. And but it's a weird one, isn't it? It's a funny one, because he has done such a fantastic job. He will go down as a real legend at Selhurst Park. But where a lot of fans will be remembering what success that he brought, the FA Cup, Charity Shield, and the performances, league positions, etc. There will always be that thought and that memory of the way that he's conducted himself in these final few months at the football club. So it's a shame. Nottingham Forest, Crystal Palace. I am going to go for a 2-1 Forest win. What are you going to go for?
1-0 Forest.
Okay. Right, Tottenham Hotspur take on Manchester City Sunday afternoon at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 4:30 p.m. kickoff. Spurs are currently 14th in the Premier League table. Manchester City are second, 4 points away from league leaders Arsenal right now. Spurs have 28 points. Manchester City have 46. Now, Spurs have scored 33 goals this Premier League campaign, whilst Manchester City have scored 47. Now, it's been a good week for Spurs in the Champions League, going through to the last 16, beating Eintracht Frankfurt 2-0 in Germany. Spurs finishing fourth in the Champions League table. But league form hasn't been great, because last time out, scraping a draw at Turf Moor, 2-2 against Burnley, and before that, losing 2-1 at home against West Ham United. There were a lot of boos. There were a lot of chants about Thomas Frank. Certainly, you're being sacked in the morning a couple of times. Lots of chants that Thomas Frank was unhappy with, but he was applauding the fans and enjoying the moment at Frankfurt, having delivered that Champions League success. Manchester City, they have won their last two in all competitions, beating Wolves 2-0 in the Premier League at the Etihad, and then also beating Galatasaray midweek in the Champions League. Now, previous meetings, 156, Spurs winning 61, Manchester City winning 62, and 33 draws. Now, the last time that these two sides met in the Premier League was back in August, when things were great for Tottenham, beating Manchester City 2-0 at the Etihad. Now, Tottenham have completed the Premier League double over Manchester City 9 times so far, more than they have any other opponent. Meanwhile, only Chelsea 10 have done so more against Manchester City. Now, City have won their last 2 away league games against Spurs, last winning 3 in a row between Feb 1973 and August 1974. Tottenham Hotspur are winless in 5 Premier League games, drawing 3 and losing 2. Their 4th run of 5+ winless games in their last 2 seasons. They have had 4 runs of 5 or more winless games across their previous 12 seasons combined from 2012-13 to 23-24. And in the last 2 seasons, Manchester City ranked 6th for points won away from home in the Premier League. That is 46 in 30, an average of 1.53 per game. In the 2 seasons before, in 22-23 and 23-24, City won the joint most away points, and that was 81 in 38 games, 2.13 points per game. Gareth, what have you made of Tottenham's week? And I know there's a lot of talk yet again about some Spurs fans saying just let City win because it helps City win the title rather than Arsenal. What I would say at this point is we need the 3 points. We are sitting too close to the relegation zone for my liking. And what I would say is the Feb fixtures coming up, City at home, Manchester United away, Newcastle at home, and then Arsenal at home. What I would say is let's win all 4 games, including beating City and Arsenal. That's what I'm saying.
Look, it's not got the same jeopardy that it had that night in May when it was the second last game of the season. City could lose here and still go on to win the league. So it's that's not beyond the realms. And of course, as you pointed out, the points that Spurs take off Man City, should they beat them, they'll have that opportunity to take the points off Arsenal in a few weeks' time. Yep. I've been super critical of the manager, as you know, Chris, and plenty of the viewers that watch every week. The Burnley game, for me, we should have won that game. The players didn't take the opportunities that fell their way. Defensively, the 2 goals we gave away were criminal. So how much blame you give the manager for the Burnley game, I don't know. I think we should have won that game. Has the manager been good enough since he's come in the door? Absolutely not. Does he deserve criticism? Absolutely. Does beating Frankfurt and qualifying automatically for the next round of the Champions League excuse that? No way does it. But, I do think the West Ham and the Burnley game, the players have to take a lot of responsibility for the only picking up 1 point out of 6. There was enough opportunities created in those games. They won those games. And look, I'm not saying things would be rosy in the garden if we had won those games, but we would have been breathing a little bit easier going into February. We've made it very difficult for ourselves, by only taking 1 point from those games. And now we're going to have to try and take points off some of the best teams. Always, we're going to be in a real mess of a situation where we're going to be looking nervously over our shoulder going into the final sort of 12 games. And that isn't good enough for a club like Tottenham. That, from what we were told at the start of the season, we were going to compete on all fronts. At the moment, that doesn't seem any way possible. I was expecting more transfer business to be happening in January just because of how grave the situation is. Yes, we've been unfortunate with some injuries, but you've got to fix it. I'm not saying we've got a real opportunity in the Champions League, but we're into the last 16. We could be getting a favourable draw in terms of, not one of the teams that have qualified automatically. And, in cup football, and we've seen it in the Champions League, some crazy things can happen. We've seen about the goalkeeper scoring for Benfica midweek. This competition has got some tremendous stories. Not always the best team on paper goes on. They won the Champions League. Do you think Spurs can win it? No. But until you're in it, when you're in it, you have got a chance because these games can go on miracle moments sometimes. And I really thought the club would do more in the market unless something comes out of the blue now, it looks very much like we're going to end up with what we have. And we're really, really short in a number of areas. So what we can do in this February period in the Premier League is going to be very, very important, because if we can get some victories, it'll take the pressure off in terms of relegation fears, and we can have a real crack at Atletico Madrid, Juventus, Galatasaray, or Club Brugge, whoever it is. And who knows, maybe at least go into March with, at least go into maybe April with the season still alive in terms of the possibility of going further in the Champions League, because I don't think we're going to win enough games in the Premier League to get even into the bottom tier of European football next year. I think top half's going to be pretty unlikely at the moment unless we go on a major run. I don't think this team at the moment is capable of that. I think this team are capable of maybe shocking you in terms of beating a Man City or beating an Arsenal in a one-off game. But in terms of going on a 3 or 4 game winning streak, I just don't see it at the moment. I don't think the tactics allow for that, and I don't think we've got the quality with players that are out injured to do that.
Gareth, Manchester City boss Pep Guardiola has lost more league games against Spurs than any other opponent in his managerial career, and that is 8. What do you put that down to? And also, let me ask you about the transfer business that they have done. In particular, buying in, 2 experienced Premier League players in Mark Gay and Antoine Semenyo.
Well, I think that's a level of player that Spurs fans want to see coming on through the door. Interesting this week that Thomas Frank says he was going to make a rule exception and say that we tried very hard for Semenyo, but he preferred Man City. Who wouldn't? But I don't buy into this. If we can't get Semenyo, we're going to wait until the summer, because if there's another top player that comes on the market and five or six top clubs are after him, he's not going to pick Spurs, is he? We need to go and find someone that wants to come but has the ability to be a top player for us. If Bournemouth can do it, if Brentford can do it, if Brighton can do it, why can Spurs not do it? Why can we not turn, potential and being a superstar player? Yes, I know the fans can sound hypocritical sometimes that they want top players coming through the door, but if top players don't want to come, then you have to find the next best and then trust the system that's in place to turn them into top players. Spurs used to sign players like Robbie Keane, Jermaine Defoe, Berbatov, Aaron Lennon, and they weren't coming from massive football clubs, but they were able to develop and be really, really top players for us. Where has that gone missing in recent years? Because someone like, for example, Wilson Odegaard, who I think isn't at the level of a Semenyo, but I think under the right structure, he could be a really, really good player. But I think for whatever reason, we haven't been able to find the right coach, the right structure in place to help players like him to come through the door and turn them into top players. So I think one of the positives recently is Xavi Simons, Chris, has looked more and more at home. I think we're seeing more of the player that we hope to see in the first half of the season. But at the minute, I just think we're such an average team in that sort of midfield and forward area that it's very difficult to think that things are going to change. And I don't think the manager is brave enough with his tactics to really have a go from 0-0. I think some of the best football we've played under Thomas Frank has been when we were 1 or 2-0 down. We've seen that in recent weeks. We need to be like that from the off. Frankfurt was a good performance, but they had nothing to play for, Chris, so I wouldn't be reading too much on it.
He said in the embargoed press conference ahead of this game against City that in the last 10 games, the last 10 performances, we are seeing signs of progress and it is better. Do you agree?
I think we spoke about this recently, Chris. I think in those 10 games, there's been many spells in most of them of little good bits, but we haven't really strung 90 minutes together. Frankfurt, you could say, but was Frankfurt a breathtaking performance? It was decent, but Liverpool went and scored 5 out there, and Liverpool have been awful this season. So Frankfurt were one of the poorest teams in the Champions League this season. They actually seem weaker than they were last year when they were in the Europa League. It was an easy game, to be honest. So I just don't think he's been brave enough from minute 1 in games. I think there is a real focus on trying to be hard to beat, and limiting risky movements or passes because of counterattacks and stuff. So, and look, the one thing I have to say that the set pieces have been excellent. We look really dangerous from the set pieces, but that can't be the only tool in your box. You've got to be decent on the ball and got to be creating from open play. And defensively, over the last few weeks, we've been suspect. The Burnley game, the 2 goals we gave away were ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And yes, the players have to take responsibility, but what a missed opportunity that those 2 games against Burnley and West Ham. What a massive missed opportunity.
Now, of course, we are back at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and as I mentioned, those 4 very tough fixtures coming up in Feb. 3 out of those 4 are at home. The other one is Old Trafford. Now, Thomas Frank has won just 4 of his last 22 home Premier League matches with an identical record, winning 2, drawing 3 and losing 6 across his last 11 games of Brentford, and then his first 11 with Spurs. So overall, winning 4, drawing 6 and losing 12. Thomas Frank has the worst points per game at home of any Spurs boss in the Premier League history, and that is 0.82. 0.82, that's terrible, Gareth.
Shocking. And let's be honest, the only reason he's still in position is because there's a lack of availability out there until the summer. I'd be very surprised unless February goes really bad and we lose every game and we're on a real scrap to stay up. I think that the board may have just called time on finding a replacement until the end of the season and just try and hope they can script through until the end of the season, whether that's with a mid-table finish or they may have some thinking that we might be able to get an outside position in Europe. But either way, it's not going to be good enough. We wanted to be in the Champions League again next season, so I think it's probably just about seeing it through to the summer for the club, and they'll go a different way. I'd be very surprised if Thomas Frank was given any more time because of the animosity in the fan base. I'd be shocked if he was still the manager next season, unless Spurs have a complete change and go on a brilliant run to the end of the season. But I think that's very unlikely. I don't think all the players have bought into this Thomas Frank way. I think that's a problem that we're seeing in a number of games this season. For how per times we were under Ange Postecoglou, I never sensed resistance from the players towards him. I'm seeing resistance from some of the players with Thomas Frank, and I just think come May, it's all about getting the May for the club now, and they'll reevaluate. But I think this ownership, yes, they're saying it's a different ownership. It's still the same family involved. I think if they do go with Pochettino, Chris, and it doesn't go right, and he's sacked after a year or 2, I find it very difficult how they can stay in place. I think there will be a massive call to sell up and let somebody else have it, because how much more can you do or try to turn around this sinking ship? Because if this continues, Chris, it's only going to end one way, and that's Spurs in the Championship. You can't keep floating 17th, 16th. We've seen it with Southampton. We've seen it with Wolves. If you're down there every year, eventually there's going to be 3 teams that are better than you.
I'll say it again, Gareth, and I've said this, a lot over the past week or so, particularly since those 2 Champions League wins against Dortmund and against Frankfurt, that I would love to see Thomas Frank turn this around at Spurs. There were a lot of doubters about Ange Postecoglou winning the Europa League last year, and I love to see people prove people wrong, particularly in football, particularly when a team is down there and struggling, and then a manager somehow gets the team playing and producing points. We certainly need points. How many points do you think realistically that Spurs will pick up in Feb during these 4 tough matches?
Do you want me to give you 4 predictions for the 4 games?
Go for it.
We're going to lose to Man City. We're going to lose to Man United. We'll beat Newcastle at home because they're going to be knackered, I think, and away from they've been poor. And we're going to rally, I think, and produce a home performance against Arsenal and get a draw. So I'm going to say 4 points.
That's not enough, is it?
It won't be enough, but it'll be enough for Thomas Frank to stay in charge. I think the only way he gets sacked is if we don't win a game in February. I think if he wins one game, he'll be stiff.
I know you've been banging on about this for some time, but do you think that Thomas Frank has been given almost a free pass this season? The fact that Spurs did finish 17th last season, because he keeps going on about it's a transitional season for Tottenham, and the fact that we are now in the last 16 of the Champions League, which gives the football club over £42.5 million already in prize money. Do you think that he's been given a free pass in the Premier League? Because a lot of people are talking about...
Absolutely not, Chris. Because the board statement was we were going to compete on all fronts. It didn't say in 4 years' time. It says next from this season. So there's no way the board envisaged in January and December the fans singing "We want Thomas Frank out" or "You're getting sacked in the morning." That is not that's a disaster season, not a transitional season. So no, the only reason he's still in place is because there's no one else. And they're reluctant to bring an interim manager in for a few months. So unless we're in a relegation battle, that is the only way he won't see out the season. If we're sitting 13th in April and we're 7 or 8 points clear, he'll still be the manager. They'll see out the season and then they'll make a change.
Gareth, the good news is that Thomas Frank said that Dominic Solanke is fit and he is available to start the game. To have Dominic Solanke back now, it's huge for us, isn't it? And Frank even said it's like having him as a brand new signing because, of course, he scored a goal against Dortmund, scored again against Frankfurt. It's a delight, isn't it, to have a player like him now fit and available, a player that is always in the right position, who can score goals and be that deadly figure in the centre.
Yeah, he's a top player, and we've missed him dearly, no doubt about it. And there was an inevitability when he was through on goal, he would score. And we haven't had that really all season. So, big boost. They have him back, but we've got to protect him. A lot of tough games coming up now, so we've got to manage his game time. And look, I'm in the same camp as you. I would love Spurs to go and win all 4 games and Thomas Frank stick 2 fingers up to everybody. Because I want this club to win games. I don't care who the manager is, as long as we're winning games. But I just find it very difficult to believe there's going to be a massive change between now and May in terms of the form.
Before we get into the prediction and the predicted lineup, is there, and I asked Craig this, and I've also asked Ricky this, having been with Ricky in Germany for the last couple of days, is there any part of you that has a little bit more belief in Thomas Frank for what he's done in the Champions League at Spurs? So these last couple of results and performances in the Champions League, is there a part of you now that is scratching your head a little bit more going, oh, actually, perhaps it can work under him?
No.
That's exactly the answers they gave as well.
Yeah, I think we had a very fortunate run in the Champions League in terms of who we played. We only really played one top team, and that was PSG. The German league's had its pants pulled down in all the European competitions. They haven't been strong. Liverpool beat Frankfurt by 5. Spurs won in Frankfurt to beat Dortmund. Dortmund didn't qualify automatically for the next round of the Champions League. And the rest of the teams, I think we played 4 of the bottom 6. So, no, there was nothing to celebrate in the Champions League. Don't get me wrong, I'm delighted we got through. But there's been, if you look at some of the other fixtures that teams had, we'd have struggled.
Gareth, let's get into the predicted lineup. What lineup do you think that Thomas Frank will go with against Manchester City on Sunday afternoon? And if it's different, the one that you think he will go with and the one that you want him to go with?
I would go with Vicario, Spence, Romero, Van de Ven if he's fit, Udogie, Palhinha, Sarr, Xavi Simons, and then front 3 of Tell, Solanke, and Odegaard. That would be but I think that Archie Gray will play over Sarr. I think that Thomas Frank will do that.
Can I ask you about Xavi Simons? Had a good performance against Frankfurt. He's had a lot of criticism, hasn't he, since signing? But we know that he's got it in his locker.
Yeah, he's definitely looking more of the player that he was. They've talked about. So I think that's the one positive at the minute. He looks like he could be a good player for us, not just now, but in the future as well. So, I think he just needs a magical moment, doesn't he? He thought that was it against Burnley, rescuing at least a draw, and we could have done the 1 in the end, but he hit the crossbar. And then the disallowed goal, which was a little bit harsh. Yeah, he just needs a little bit of luck, but I do think there are signs there that he could be a very, very good player for us.
Just very quickly, where will Manchester City finish at the end of this season?
Let's go for it. They're going to win the league. Let's go.
Right. Score prediction for this one. Gareth, I know you think that I might be crazy, but I'm just hoping for a top performance, in Thomas Frank's words, top performance at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We could really do with it. And it has been so toxic lately in the Premier League games, particularly at home. The amount of boos that we have heard at our home ground it's not nice to see. It's not nice to hear. It's not nice to feel. And there's a lot of discontent, particularly, as you mentioned about the transfer window as well. We certainly hoped and expected for a lot more in this window in terms of impact players coming in. Score prediction, I know you'll probably laugh and think I'm absolutely mad, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 Tottenham win. What are we going to go for?
I'm going 2-1 the Norway, 2-1 the Man City.
Okay. Right. The last one to cover is going to be Monday Night Football, Sunderland against Burnley. Gareth, what have you made of Sunderland's season so far? Because Sunderland at the moment are sat in mid-table in 11th. Burnley are down in 19th. Burnley certainly put a shift in against Spurs last time out in the Premier League. Only scored 25 goals this season. And weirdly, Sunderland have scored less, 24. Now, Sunderland lost 3-1 away at West Ham last time out. And previous meetings, Sunderland winning 29, Burnley 31, and 23 games finishing as a draw. Earlier on in the campaign, Burnley beat Sunderland 2-0 at Turf Moor, and Sunderland have lost just one of their last 12 home league games against Burnley, winning 8 and drawing 3, going down 4-2 in the Championship back in October 2022. How do you see this one panning out for Monday Night Football?
I don't think it's going to be one of them more entertaining Monday Night Footballs, to be honest.
I was going to say that. I thought you would bring some positivity.
Nah, I think it'll be probably a Monday night. I think it'll be one of those games you just probably zone out of if you're watching it. Don't think there'll be many goals, but who knows? We see shocks all the time. Burnley will be very disappointed not to see out that one against Spurs, after scoring so late.
Yeah.
I think their risk is probably run as well in terms of chances of staying up, but they've got to go down fighting and they've got to keep believing that something might turn. Sunderland, maybe it's just catching up with them now, the Premier League, but still in a very good position. And who knows, maybe they have an outside chance of European football as well, but what a season they're having. And I hope the fans, if results don't tend to keep, if they have a little bit of a bad spell, I hope the fans stick with it and, don't forget that where they were, in the last few years. And, Sunderland fans at the start of the season, if you had offered them 17th, they would have took it. So, it's important they don't forget where those expectations were.
But it's important to win games like this, isn't it? I expect that the Sunderland fans have now, particularly after the start of this Premier League campaign, that it's almost an expectation now that you've got a home game against Burnley, a team sitting, second bottom in the table. It's an expectation that you have to win this game to stay in the Premier League. Yeah,
and I think the Sunderland players will know that, and it's a great opportunity. They get 3 more points, and really, you would think on the points that they have, that would be enough to stay up. So, no, I think Sunderland have nothing to worry about. And I do think they'll win this game, Chris. And interestingly, Monday's also transfer deadline day, so I'm sure you'll be exhausted come kick-off in this game because you'll be talking about all the transfer business the Spurs have done.
Yeah. It finishes at 7 p.m, by the way, on Monday, which is a weird time. It's normally 11, so it's finishing at 7 p.m. this time.
That'll be the excuse then for a lot of clubs who didn't have enough time.
Yeah. Right, score prediction for this one. I'm going to go 2-0 Sunderland. What are you going to go for?
1-0 Sunderland, Chris.
Okay, right. I don't know who chose that one as a Monday Night Football match.
Prediction for transfer deadline day, Chris. How many players are Spurs going to bring in?
Well, Thomas Frank's now talking about he's not dismissing loans, so perhaps we're bringing 1 or 2 on transfer deadline day. Who knows, Gareth?
Raheem Sterling on a free transfer?
No, that's not happening. That's not happening. Right, DL 9053 agrees with me. Spurs 2, Manchester City 1. They've said Solanke and Javi Simmons will score for us. Michael Perry also says 2-1 Spurs. Thank you so much for all of your comments during this stream on YouTube, Facebook and X. Really appreciate you getting involved, and come back next week for another edition of Premier League predictions. Gareth, thank you so much as always. Let me reverse that question to you. Do you think that Spurs will do any more business before 7 p.m. on Monday?
I think we'll bring in one, but who that is, I do not know.
I
would just love it to show some sort of ambition and bring in somebody that can really get the fans going. A loan deal isn't going to do it, let's be honest.
Well, for the short term of getting us, we've said many times, haven't we? If we could string a couple of wins together, you mentioned about Fulham, earlier on in the show.
You're not going to get a top player on loan, are you? That's not going to happen. So you're going to get somebody else's cast off.
But an impact player, a player to come in and make a difference. That's what I mean. A player to make a difference in a particular position that does make us stronger or give us even more depth, from now until the end of the season. Because if we can string a couple of results together, I get what you mean. We all want top stars in, and we all want top professionals in, and we want, great players in. But in a January window, we all know it's going to be very difficult. But Thomas Frank seems so confident and adamant that he is going to be heavily backed by really, really decent players and a lot of money being spent in the summer window. You expect him to go out the door. So it's going to be a very, very interesting few months to see what happens here. Gareth, as always, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for all of your incredible input on this channel. What are you up to this weekend, and where can people find you on social media?
I'm hopefully watching Leeds beat Arsenal on Saturday, and I'm hopefully watching Spurs run riot at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But look, it's not April Fool's Day yet.
Oh, come on! You nearly gave us the positivity. Come on, you should have stopped there.
I should have stopped there. But look, looking forward to the weekend's football, of course. And let's just hope we get a surprise on Monday. I want to wake up on Monday morning and I want to see a David Ornstein or a Fabrizio Romano or an Alistair Gold exclusive. Tottenham Hotspur have agreed a deal for such superstar, and he's keen to make the move.
Right.
That's what I want to see.
So we don't want much, do we? On Saturday, we want a Leeds win. On Sunday, we want a Spurs win. And on Monday, we want a signing or two. That's the dream scenario. Yeah. Gareth, thank you as always. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. And we will be back again tomorrow. On Sunday, after when hopefully Spurs have beaten Manchester City. We'll be back with the Spurs Chat podcast. But thanks for watching this one. Have a great weekend. Stay safe and well, and come on, you Spurs.